The time is now 4:25.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, legislative update.
Legislative update. So we have pretty briefly, just a couple things I wanted to bring to your attention. Our omnibus bill, H 567, moved through the House pretty smoothly. Pretty pleased with how it came out. No major changes to the retirement provisions. So for this board, that included three things. The first is the amortization task force. That it's the group that we want to work with this summer to look at our funding policy and make sure that, as we approach the end of our closed 30-year period, we're not creating additional volatility by virtue of the funding policy if there are other options. We think there are. And what we want to do is work with stakeholders to identify them and come up with something that has broad buy-in and consensus so that, when we are providing a ADEC recommendation, everyone agrees that this is a good, solid method that that's developed it. Everyone seems to have seen value in that so far, which is great. It also includes the transition of our oversight of our OPEB assets currently held in the Treasurer's Office over to VPIC. That's gone through pretty cleanly as well. And the third piece in that bill is the ability of a union president to purchase service the employer of the union president, so the union, to purchase service on that person's behalf. Previously, a union president, for example, the NEA would have to not get credit for a VSTRS system, and that could serve as a disincentive for people to serve in that capacity. Here, this will allow them to get a year of service if the employer agrees to purchase it. So all of those seem to have gone through the House pretty smoothly. Just before this meeting, I was testifying for the first time in Senate Gov Ops on that bill. And I felt like it was good reception in that bill. So hopefully that moves through. If you recall, we asked for some positions in that bill. We asked for one retirement position, and VPIC was asking for a position as well. We did not get the position. All positions were stripped out of the bill, and in the budget, the House agreed to fund the VPIC position, which is great. VPIC really needs it, particularly with the added workload of the OPEB assets going over. But we still think that there's a compelling need for our position in the retirement division, and so we're taking that issue over to the Senate and hope that we'll have a favorable reception and Senate approves on that ask. So that is a work item still outstanding, and we haven't given up yet, and hope we can get that through. The one other piece that I wanted to bring to your attention has to do with if you recall earlier in the session, we brought to you concern about federal grants that schools are receiving. With the new administration, federal grants have fallen off sharply. So that, and there was, in a way that we didn't see over a year ago when we projected how much we would receive in federal grants. So just by way of background, if there's a federally grant funded teacher position, we assess a retirement component to that, and that's the schools send that over to us. So if, making this up, let's say a teacher's making $50,000, we might assess I can't remember what the number is. I think it's in the 20% range. So we might assess $10,000 that this school would then pay to us, and it would offset what the state has to pay for the ADEC. We collect that on a substantial lag. Like, we've only got the first quarter of this school year in to date. So I think we just opened up for second quarter. So that's, we don't have great visibility into what we're seeing, but we realized last spring that we were going to start seeing this phenomenon. So between the budget last spring and the Budget Adjustment Act this winter, the legislature has reserved in total $6.8 million to help make up that shortfall that we expect in federal grant assessment revenue. So that's great. Our most recent projections are that we're going to need most, but not all of that amount. So we think that there may be anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million left over. At the same time, we're we fund our state system a little bit differently in every biweekly payroll. Our employer contributions are sent over. And as we track that carefully at this time of year, that amount has fallen short by a couple $1 million. So the state has revised the employee contribution percentage for the remainder of the year, but we still are a little nervous and might need to have a cushion at the end. So we are recommending that the legislature broaden the allowable use of this $6.8 million reserve so that once the teacher's ADEC is paid in full, anything left over can be used for the state ADEC. We think that's just prudent. It's money that the legislature reserved to pay the ADEC, and we just want to make sure that both systems are fully funded. And you know, we're recommending that broaden use. We've talked to the administration about it. They support it, and we've already flagged it to the Senator Probst chair. I've got a letter that we'll plan to send over probably tomorrow to sort of characterize what this is. So just wanted you to hear it. Like, this is one of those things that's complicated, but you know, someone tells you whisper down the lane something's going on with with some kind of funding. It's no concern from us, and our main concern is making sure both ADECs are fully funded. So that is what's happening in the legislature. They're also thinking about like some kind of transformation of the entire education system. I think they're just going to bang that out in the last week or so. No, I joke, but that I see Colin's on here. I don't know if he's willing to give a brief heads up. It's something that I follow from a very far perch, and you know, we look at it just, you know, as something gets a little bit more real. If there's going to be serious consolidation, that's something we're going to have to plug into a bit more, because it will have an administrative impact on us. Act 46 certainly did, because my team has to figure out who's employing who and, you know, do all the work of setting up new employers. But as to what is the daily, I have no idea, but I see Colin may be available to chat briefly. Colin, if you're talking,
muted.
you're on mute.
No, I'm here. I just was, didn't want to jump in uninvited, but appreciate the acknowledgement. I will say, Tim, your point about perhaps, I think, intended jokingly that this will all be done really quickly at the last minute, might actually be how this all plays out. You know, I think we sort of saw that happen last year. But, you know, who knows? Everybody's prediction is as good as the other person's at this point. But just as a process matter, House Education, folks might have seen, moved a bill last week. House Ways and Means is finalizing. They've had the bill all this week, and they've been finalizing various components of it. And it'll be in House Appropriations tomorrow, and I believe to the full House next week. Then it will go to the Senate. Senate Education will put in their version of the language, which is different from the House. I think as it relates to the points that Tim, you raised, the current House construct as well as the Senate construct both have some version of voluntary mergers. The House construct they're different, but the House process has timelines that would potentially have new districts operational for July 1, 2029. And so that's sort of the time horizon that potentially exists, in so much as voluntary new districts are formed in that coming out of the House bill. The operational date would be most likely July 1, 2029 for the new employer. Then there's some new contingencies related to the implementation of the foundation formula. And the foundation formula, one of the things that I think the legislature needs to figure out going forward, quite frankly, are some of the normal costs and the OPEB costs and how that is kind of factored into the education system and the funding system going forward. I think it's all very much there, and it will be factored into the coming off the top of the ed fund like it is right now. But I do know that it's sort of in the background just as a conversation that in addition to the foundation formula numbers, there will be things like the OPEB and the normal costs that will still be additive to the education fund. So
They're still keeping those as sort of standalones.
as I understand it, but again, I was just looking at the most recent draft from Ways and Means, and by point of information, the furthest out date that is written in the bill is a final phase in fiscal 39 of the ramp down of the supplemental district spending. Point of those words is more fiscal 39. So
Wow.
there are many far out dates that
Wow.
I know for this board, you all recognize far out dates are very important. And in this particular context, the information that you all receive from Siegel and the actuaries, I think has more clarity to it than perhaps we might have on what the education funding system will look like in fiscal 39.
Nicely put.
Okay. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of what's going on under the Golden Dome on the education side of things.
Thanks for that, Colin.
Fabulous. Anything else for the update?
That's all I got. Any questions?
Okay. Okie dokie. Next item on the agenda, disability recommendations from the Medical Review Board for Deborah Kilkelly. Do we have a motion?
So moved, George.
We have a motion to accept the recommendation from the Medical Review Board. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the recommendation for the renewal, for the recommendation for the disability. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. In your packet, there was a list of upcoming trainings. Anything you want to add to that, Tim?
No, other than if anyone's interested, these are all very good opportunities. If anything looks interesting to you, please feel free to get in touch and we can talk about funding it.
Excellent. All righty. Last but not least, any other business to come before the board?
Just really briefly, next just preview for the next couple months. We'll have our meeting, will be a little longer with Empower and RBK next month, going over the 403B plans in depth. So and then in June, I think we will have the experience studies ready for presentation. Those, are pretty important 3-year studies. So that's going to be a big meeting. I think we decided we'd maintain that one as a remote meeting. We've been kind of going back and forth on in-person versus remote. I think what we'll try and do is maybe kind of land on an annual in-person in the fall timeframe meeting. But so for this one, we'll plan to do it remote. We'll have these studies are really an interesting time to kind of understand how our plans are operating, how they compare to the assumptions we've had. In the April VPIC meeting, VPIC will adopt the economic assumptions. So that's the rate of return, the inflation assumption, and the smoothing methodology. I'm not anticipating major changes there, but that's going to be their piece to look at. And then we will look at the demographic assumptions. What are mortality rates? What are retirement rates? What's turnover look like? Salary scale, all those things. So they actually provide really interesting data points, and we're looking forward to doing that in the June timeframe.
Sorry,
So-
Tim, just to interrupt. Emily has stepped away, so we have broken quorum.
I'd say we adjourn.
I think so. You have a motion to adjourn, but we can't vote on that, so let's do it anyway. Break the rules. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks so much,
Excellent.
everybody. Enjoy the sun.
Thanks, folks. Sorry.